Welcome back to, I think this is our fourth edition of our developer Q&A series. So thank you so much for joining us. Our November series. I have three wonderful people here. I will let them introduce themselves, starting with the left. We have Jorg.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here again. I'm Jorg. I'm the head of Flight Sim at Microsoft.
Yes, and in the middle we have Seb.
Hello, I'm Sebastian. I'm in Bordeaux, France, and I'm the head of Asobo Studio.
And last but not least, we have Martial.
Hello, also in Bordeaux, France, and I'm the executive producer of Flight Sim.
Awesome, welcome guys. So you look tired. Are you guys tired? No, I think they look great.
We've been working, you know.
Yeah, they're working hard, right? They're working hard. So we have a bit of a different setup for today's Q&A. I went through all of the questions that were asked in the forums, and we noticed a lot of them had to do with some future updates that's coming. So we thought we would go in order of updates, starting with actually just explaining kind of the new feedback snapshot and the new dev update that we kind of introduced last week. There's a lot of new dates, lots of new things going on there. So I thought it'd be prudent to actually take a look at that, and Jorg will kind of go over that and explain why and what we did there. I'm going to switch screens here so you can see. Here we go, the feedback snapshot. We have our top bugs listed here. Lots of changes, Jorg. I'll let you kind of go over what this all means.
Yeah, I mean, basically we listen to you. Basically, I think the voting system is hopefully pretty clear, right? The arrows show if something went up or down from the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
We worked on the status. We do that every week, but it's basically now under investigation, means people are actually working on it. Partially fixed means it's partially fixed. Some stuff is fixed, some stuff still pending. But the most important thing on this page is we are much more specific on the releases. So when you see things like Sim Update 3 and 4 and 2, that is really just to show you that these are things are actively being worked on and they're coming at a specific date, versus the backlog, which is something that's still something we're looking at. Oftentimes when something is under investigation, it's still on the backlog. But then at some point, once we know really what it is, then it goes into one of the Sim updates. And maybe if you look at the next page.
Sure thing. The wish list, yep.
The wish list. Yeah, that one. I mean, the week before it was just backlog because it's the wish list, but we and the team sat down and actually assigned at least years to it. How about that? So you know what's coming next year, which is not that far away. Yay! So a lot of it comes in 2021. Some things on 2022. Some things we honestly haven't planned on it yet at all. And so hopefully this gives you a good idea of what is coming. And if you have feedback on it, obviously, please vote.
Sure. Can you explain a little bit what a Sim update actually is and what it encompasses, and also what iteration of Sim update we're currently on? That was a big question.
Yeah, if you go, if you could show the development roadmap, that probably shows it the best. You're all seeing a preview. I don't think we've published that quite yet.
Yeah, it'll come out today.
So Sim updates are basically, they're focused on the Sim itself versus the world or some completely new features. So we are looking a lot at the feedback snapshot, features that come out of it. We're obviously reading the forums beyond just this update. And then on top of that, there's features that we know we want to do or need to do, and that then becomes a topic. And Martial will go through the Sim updates actually today and what the next two mean. Mm-hmm. On the development roadmap, what you can see is the next few months. And like so far between launch and now, we had almost a bi-weekly update, mostly because there were some issues, as you remember, from right after launch. Mm-hmm. But now we feel like things have stabilized, and we need to slow down a little bit to make sure that the updates are solid and well tested. When you're in a 2-week cadence, it becomes pretty frantic. Mm-hmm. And then we also need to give the third parties time to get the update for a few weeks to make sure that nothing broke, because we update things and sometimes their plans break a little bit and here and there. So they need a little bit of time. So we are going to a monthly cadence now. And you can see here the next one we're doing in a few weeks again is Sim Update 2. Martial will talk you through what comes in Sim Update 2.
Chat's
then
freaking
comes
out because they see that the world updates are already spoiled for them on there. They're like UK.
a little bit more. That's actually it seems more like simpler than it is. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit more detail. I get into that and which
Sure,
airports are
yeah.
coming, all that good stuff. So there's a world update in January, and then there's another sim update in February, and so on and so forth. At some point, we'll have things like maybe you don't care about it as much, but Xbox will come, so that's going to be a release, and then there will be some bigger features and some nice surprises that are coming. So the plan is to have every 2 to 3 months a sim update, every 2 to 3 months a world update, and then interspersed with that come bigger things that we can't quite talk about yet, because honestly they take time to really develop well. But that's basically the plan, and we'll always show you 3 months ahead because we're on solid ground for the next 3 months. We know what we're doing and how long it's going to take. And beyond that, it gets a little bit fuzzier. So that's the plan with the development roadmap.
Okay. And going back to one more question on the feedback snapshot, we have the dates listed out as 2021, etc. As we get closer to dates, will they be more defined? Like, are you going to change a date that says 2021 to like Q4 or whenever you find out when it's actually coming out?
We've done it at the bottom. Like we know for like what I just said, number 22, we need a beta phase.
Yeah.
We know, like I think some of the third parties just wrote emails saying, hey, something broke on the planes with update 7. We're like, yep. We need to put out a version that they can test, and that we will have a closed beta for that. And at some point soon, so there's some infrastructure stuff to be set up for that. We hope it's going to be in Q1. It might be as late as Q2 next year that we start that, but we know it's urgent. We really want to do it. And the other ones we're going to assign out in the next months. But it's just going to be a rolling list of things that we're taking on.
Awesome. Okay. That's great. And I think the community really appreciated seeing those dates added just to get a better idea of next year. So thank you for doing that.
I was cringing when I wrote Helicopters 2022. I'm like, oh my. I already know who's going to write me some emails.
Yeah.
What? But it takes time, it's just, we need to get it right. So.
Yeah. Does that mean, this question they have, does that mean you will start on Helicopters in 2022? Or does that mean you might be working on it sooner than that?
Sneaky. Seth!
No. I think the dates are dates of release. So I would say Helicopters is something which is going to take us a long time.
Yeah.
A very long time. So and I think that's why it's in a very wide time frame. It's gonna take many months. So yeah.
Okay.
It's quite different. We know that we also need help, right? Honestly, like we said that before. Like the whole thing really works because we get input from pilots and from the community. And now with an open live platform, I think we can get input earlier. So I think it's going to be a lot more interactive, I think, on Helicopters than what we did prior to launch of the sim in the first place.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll move on from Feedback Snapshot, and let's delve into the update that just came out yesterday, World Update to the United States. I'm going to pull up some of the maps that we published yesterday if you want to talk a little bit about the overview of how yesterday's update went.
I saw in the chat earlier somebody said maybe next one is US update part 2. Good idea. But so basically what happens is the system goes like this. Bing Maps is obviously responsible for ingesting and getting all the data. And they have a bunch of contracts with companies that do that, right? They fly planes overhead and all that. And they fly on certain schedules. And then Bing ingests that data based on the schedules where the supplier gives us the data. And then we, Asobo and Black Shark actually, both have to do work to ingest the data, run machine learning on it, do color correction on it, and a bunch of other stuff. So this US update, and I think you're now looking at the height map. So the height map is something that is a little bit more independent, and it's quite opportunistic. We have a team that basically ingests height data and then cleans it up. And we can only go that fast in the United States. Quite frankly, it's huge. It's like it's a continent. And so it takes us a while. And you can see we picked some areas we thought were interesting, like in the Rockies, obviously, up north. So there is going to be more US updates, and so both on the DEM side, the height field data, and also on the visual side. So whoever said that earlier, that person was right. We're going to have a US update 2 and a US update 3 because it's going to take that long to get the whole country, the massive country really processed.
Mm-hmm. And can you speak a little bit to Hawaii and Alaska? There was didn't look like a lot of updates on there, so people are wondering about those too.
And trust me, because we had an Alaska bush trip, right? So it's like, there's actually 2 things going on. There's new data, and there's also a new technique. And the new technique is not really ready for prime time, but we think we can get more of the verticality of the height map. It's based on how the data is ingested on the Bing side. Asobo's engine is great, like there's no problem there, but on the how we get the data in actually is affecting how it looks. It looks a little bit rounded and pancakey. So there's an investigation going on. There's a strike team on it. I'm hopeful that this is going to sharpen the cliffs. Mm-hmm. And then Hawaii is one of those things. It's in the contract that Bing has. We're going to get new Hawaii data, but I honestly can't tell you exactly when, because it's opportunistic, right? They fly their planes when there's no clouds. Right now is actually kind of a bad time for the U.S. Right now, a lot of people flying south where there's no clouds. But so just know we're going to get the whole thing updated on a rolling basis, actually. Mm-hmm. But it's going to take a little bit.
Okay, that's good to know. And on the subject of yesterday's update, a lot of the questions from the forums for this Q&A has to do with things that maybe were improved yesterday or there's still questions about. So Seb, this question is for you. We'd love for you to go into more detail on water masks. So obviously people are still seeing some water details in some of the world videos that they're not seeing yet in the sim. So when will those be implemented and how are they implemented?
The water masks, so we update the water masks all the time. And so they were already in our dev branch, right? So we were already seeing the data. And it was a matter of time on when we would publish this. So it can either come with an update like yesterday, or it can just be data that gets pushed. So currently we're looking toward pushing it as data. I think there's 2 last bugs which are being fixed. So I think it's a matter of days for a water mask update to be live. And so it's not going to be a update of the actual simulator. It's just going to be data that's going to be downloaded like any package. And I don't think it's very big. But it's going to update, the list is pages, so there's going to be a lot. It doesn't mean that all the water masking of the planet is going to be done, but the system works that when we see great data, we just update it. And so we have we keep track of a list and it gets cleaned and updated. And so it's already a ton. So I think everything that's been shown in videos is in there, and then some other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so there is a delay between videos which show basically the next data that is going to come out, and when we publish it can be anywhere from a few weeks to maybe a month or more, but yeah, around that time.
Okay, so the video team usually uses a dev version that we don't have, which is why we're not seeing them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know how long this list is. Would it ever be possible to publish somewhere publicly, like the list of places we've updated with water masks?
I think we can definitely.
It's more likely a list of GPS or coordinates. It's not very readable.
It might be a map. We might do it
Could
visually.
be a map, yeah.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Might be better. Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful eventually, just to know, like, all right, it looks like they've updated these areas yet, but not those, which would be cool to see. So thank you for answering that. And on yesterday's update, Martial, a question for you. So there have been reports of flights not being logged in the logbook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit to if this issue is fixed and what there is still to do for this particular issue?
So most of the issues for the logbook should be fixed in this update 7. Basically, it was a problem on understanding how a flight is done, finished. So you can put it in the logbook. So now it should be working. Either you stop a flight by landing or going back to the main menu, or even shutting down the engine on masters, stuff like that. And so that should be fixed. Please be careful. Do not try to to have any entry in the logbook using the dev mode because it's deactivated the flight. It's not longer considered as a proper flight. But by doing that, you should have your flight's been logged correctly now, properly.
Okay, so dev mode will not log the flight.
Yes.
And are there
Once
any?
you're in dev mode, you're not considered as simming anymore. You are considered as creating.
And is there anything still under investigation regarding this issue, or is it mostly done now?
I'm sorry?
Is this issue fully fixed, or are you still investigating anything else with it?
So I know that we still have some other issue with the logbooks, but the main issue should be done.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Martial. And this next question we might get into a little deeper here, of course, because it's a big topic in the forums, and that is about the night lighting. Seb, this is going to be for you. So the question that I had was, right now it's showing floating lights around 300 to 500 feet above ground, which kills the immersion at nights. They want to know, are you aware of this? Can it be fixed? That's the first question, and the other two I'll ask after you answer this one.
So the lights floating in the air, all the reports we had should be fixed with update 7. If there is still stuff like that, please report. But I had a list of locations where this was happening, and so it's still something which is systemic. But we found the causes of the ones we had reports for, and they were all fixed. But if there's still something, I haven't seen any recently, and all the locations that had issues. For example, there was one on the Halloween event. There was some. I've had reports in Aspen. I mean, several places, right? I think it's always linked to mountains, so the problems that was causing this, all those we know and we were aware of, were fixed with update 7. And but if there's still something, it's a matter of light at a distance. Basically, there's several different LODs, and the ones at the distance, they don't have the accurate height definition yet, and they were not disappearing as they should when they were getting closer, and so they were staying at you basically had two lights, the rear one and the one which is supposed to be far away. And so now I think they're all disappearing as they should, except if there's still some bug, but I haven't seen any, and all the reports were fixed.
Okay. And going deeper, are there any plans to remove night lighting on rural roads or add lighting to more highways?
Yes, so basically night lighting has had a few changes since release. So one thing we tried to do early on is to push out the distance at which we would draw roads. In order to remove this sepia texture filter for all the night environments at a distance. So we pushed out the roads a lot. And the issue is that at a distance, the lights were becoming so faint that you wouldn't see the roads anymore. And so we investigated, and it is because the night light system on release was basically drawing one light at every vector point of the road network. But the road network far away, it becomes super simple. So basically there was no lights left. So we changed the system so that it now creates lights every X meters. So it basically adds lights on the roads so that you still have lights at the distance. But then it turned to regular, and there was too many. So in update 7, what we did is we randomized lights a little bit more on secondary roads outside in the countryside. And we're currently working, so this is going to be in the upcoming update. We're currently working to integrating population density to have a mix between road types and population so that in the countryside, we can reduce lights on highways and whatever, third test, like very, very low density roads. So this is going to be in the next update, hopefully update, what is the number in December? Update 9? 8, 9 in December.
I want to say
so it's just a matter of reading the population density we have somewhere else and making it less dense and random. But the initial goal was to push it out at a distance to get rid of this sepia filter.
Yeah. Okay. And what about?
Because I really feel like we should try to make this interactive. So I'm reading the chat.
Yeah, I see you. You're laughing.
So just know it's too fast for us to react to all the input. But know that we're going to read it after the chat. Like, so, for example, all the locations that people just said about Switzerland and that military airport and whatnot, please give us that feedback. Like, put it somewhere in the forums as a bug or Zendesk, whatever. And we will also read this chat to make sure that it's all captured. It's just too much to really talk about it here. But like, thank you for writing all this.
Yes, chat, thank you so much. Another thing we're going to try that we haven't done yet for these dev Q&As is after the fact, I'm going to make a new forum post that kind of goes over some of the stuff we talked about and clarify anything that maybe we didn't clarify and ask some of these questions so you can respond to it there. So look out for that coming. But we appreciate you typing in chat, guys, and entertaining all of us too.
Well, I mean, what they just said, like, Seb, for example, was this whole like lightning in the blue sky and stuff.
Yeah.
We couldn't find it, and it needed input. Where's it happening, right? So if you have specific locations where the nightlights are floating or whatever, gotta send us that information. That the world is just so big, you know, we can't find everything. But use cases are super good to have.
Yeah. And with the lighting, Seb, is there any progress on changing anything like the intensity of the lights or the variation of the lights themselves?
Yes. So basically, every time we change the system, we retune the intensities because the system works in a way that, especially at the distance, you often have 4 or 5 lights in the same pixel. So it tries to calculate basically the photon energy which comes into each pixel, and this creates some average brightness. But it's not the same at 4K or 1080p because you have more pixels. And so every time we add more lights, it becomes much brighter at a distance. So basically, when we change the density of lights, we retune it. So we don't really touch the kelvins or so, but we try to adjust it because, for example, when we're going to reduce it in a distance, the number of lights once we have the population density, some of the roads may totally disappear in a distance because there's just not enough light per pixel remaining. So we're gonna have to adjust again. And and so we did this already several times, trying to get the perfect. But it's not always easy in a way that when you look outside with your eye, you know, I have super high dynamic range. It's crazy, right? You can see everything. When you take a photo, it's difficult, right? Either it's all dark outside and you can see the cockpit, or it's all bright. It's the dynamic range of the computer screen is not so high. And so we try to find a balance so that you can see nicely outside and it's not all dark. You can still see the cockpit. And so we have to sort of compress the range a little bit so that it does all fit in screen and you don't get just like super bloomy things and then everything else is all dark. So it's a kind of tricky thing to actually get something which looks good and looks actually that you can actually find way out, right? Otherwise, if you have lights in the cockpit, you would probably see nothing outside with exact lighting. So yeah, we adjust it all the time. And on the next iteration, there's going to be a fix in the countryside with more randomness and another pass on just making sure everything is balanced again.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Seb. This next question is also for you, actually. A big one that we'd love to know more about. So with yesterday's updates, what were the CPU optimizations that were made and mentioned?
There was the ones which were listed. And then there was one which is not listed, which is, so it's very variable. I've seen machines where it's very impacting. So what the optimization is that basically previous update 7, the main thread was waiting for all the world work to be done before it could finish and render. And so some of the world work is totally asynchronous. So I don't know, when we load some terrain, it's completely asynchronous. But there's some work which has to be completed before the end of the frame. And this was eating every frame a few milliseconds on the main thread, and sometimes bigger chunks. And so they changed the system so now that it can actually render and finish the world work on the next frame. And then so basically we win one frame. So on my machine, so I have a machine where I was more limited by the CPU. I gain 10 milliseconds. So in some cases it goes up from, I don't know, 50 to 70 frames per second. I think it was more impacting people which had a little bit limit on the CPU and a higher GPU. It doesn't always work. It works in an area where there's more terrain work. But yeah, so it was more like a unlocking. It takes better advantage of multi-cores when you do that, because the main thread can already move on while the other cores are finishing their work instead of everybody waiting. So it's more like a stall fix. And this has an impact that normally you get frame rate and higher CPU load, because basically the CPU is going to work more efficiently. But only really if the CPU was the problem. If you were waiting for the GPU, it's not going to change anything. So for example, what I did is I accelerated my GPU load by just reducing the render scale a little bit. And so I was just never blocked by GPU ever. And then the CPU just goes faster because of that update. But it's a balance, right? It depends on if people prefer more pixel accuracy with a render scale, more detail. Everybody can have his own preferred settings. But yeah, for people who are more CPU blocked, in some areas there should be a significant improvement. I've seen some, so we have done tests here, obviously, but every machine is different, right? Every PC specific. I've seen some videos outside on YouTube where people have been comparing. It was anywhere from no change to 10 FPS more. Okay. Like it went from 40 to 50, so something like that. So it doesn't always do something, because in some areas the CPU was just not waiting. So it's very variable. I've not seen a reduction so far. I've read reports of people reporting a little bit more stutter. So this is something we're investigating. I have not seen this, and it should not be linked to that change, but it could be just something else, right? That has happened in update 7, which maybe add a little bit more stutter. We'll see and check into that.
And can we, yeah.
Maybe one quick point, like, because I looked at the chat a little bit, can't resist. So optimization is an ongoing thing. So when we say, hey, there's CPU optimization going on, there's excuse my French here, a crap ton of optimizations going on across the entire project. So you
French.
It's never done. But I mean, Seb, do you want to talk about some of the stuff that you guys are doing right now, and not just in update 7, beyond? Like, I think with
big focus on memory still. So basically our goal is to I mean, a large part of our team is fully on optimization, because it is going to enable, first of all, people to take better advantage of the sim, get more options. And as soon as we are, I mean, at some point, who cares about 500 FPS, right? So optimization is going to enable us to add more stuff, right? To add more effects, more. So there's discussions on the sliders, on the graphical options. We may add something on top of Ultra. I don't know how we're going to call that thing, but basically allow people to go higher, and that's the goal of optimization. And for that, we need CPU. And I mean, I don't think many people have a CPU which is 100% used, right? There's always CPUs waiting. So it's more efficiently orchestrating the CPU work. That's what we did, right, with the last update. GPU is the same, right? Make sure it works all the time. And there's some optimization on GPU that we can do on pixel and how we just do stuff. For example, there's currently we're working on improving the cost of trees. It's really going to be per element, right? The cost of trees on the GPU, and then a big work on memory. So we're trying to reduce really the footprint on memory a lot, which is going to allow us to add. I mean, it's already the case when you look at the US update. There's areas where there's a lot more detail than before, and so yeah, this detail needs to be rendered, but also sit in memory. So we need to constantly optimize everything so that we can bring in more visual quality and more improvements.
Yeah, that's good to know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Jorg. So CPU optimizations is something that'll keep on happening with more sim updates, and constantly. Sounds like you're working on it. You got a big team on it, so thank you for that. I think we can move on now to Sim Update 2, which is coming out here in towards the end of December. So Martial, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what's coming in Sim Update 2?
Okay, so in Sim Update 2, well, people are going to be glad, I guess, because we are going to open the VR for everyone. And this VR, it's not only the sim experience that would be in VR, but also all the menus. So you won't have to put it on and off as we did for the alpha. So everybody would get an access to VR now. And and when I say everybody,
free?
It's not like free for free.
Yay!
For free.
Wonderful.
And it will also be open to all devices. including Arcodus family, Val family, every family of headset are going to be supported there. And on the sim itself, so we are going to bring a lot of improvements, but now we have decided to focus on some topics because there's so much things to do, and we can not like work on every single topic, everything in one time. So we've decided to improve mostly the airliners experience. And so we're going to fix a lot of things here, but also we are going to bring 2 new tutorials for the Airbus A320. So VR and airliners experience. But that doesn't mean that we've removed every single bugs or optimization that was in the pipe. So it means like for the sim itself, it's more a focus on airliners.
Okay,
yeah,
so
by the way,
yeah.
just to say that about VR. So we had a closed beta. We started on Windows mixed reality devices first, and then we went broader to other devices. And feedback has been great. Like, so the reason why it wasn't entirely clear if how far along we were, like really we wanted feedback, but the feedback has been so positive that we think we're ready to put this out before the holiday season. Yay.
Oh, good. So everyone can play it over New Year's when they're bored and not working. Congrats, guys. That's great to know. So thank you for that. Looks like Chad's excited that Sim Update 2 is going to include a lot of sim improvements to the airliners, so that's exciting. I don't know if you could go into any detail on some of those, what might be fixed on an airliner, or is that still something we should wait on?
So we will publish a list because I don't want to commit on...
To say something, yeah, all good.
Some topics are difficult, so we are on a good path of bringing a lot of improvements.
Sweet.
But I wouldn't like to commit because behind me there's a team. If tonight I'm committed on something which is other than what I think or what has been planned, I don't want to put them in trouble.
Of course. Okie dokie. Thank you, Martial, and
thank you.
Of course. Our next update after that is World Update 3 coming at the end of January, which I'll let Jorg speak to. I guess we kind of spoiled it a little bit earlier, but you can go into more detail.
We did. I'm wondering, Jane, like, so I'm looking, and I think we're right in the right spot to talk about autopilot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions about autopilot in the thread, and I know, Seb, you've been deep diving on that one. Do you want to just give an update?
Yeah, sure. So on yesterday's update, there's been 2 big changes. So first of all, on the planes themselves. So basically something we did on 5 planes on the previous update just to try. So it was it was already done on the 152s, like the Aerobat and the normal, the 172s, the 2 172s. And a third one, I don't remember. I think it was a TBM. It's basically a change in the way, so it's not a core flight model change, it's more a change in the way the controls, where basically, you know, on a plane, we can't exactly reproduce the feeling in a real airplane because we don't have a force feedback. The trim doesn't exactly work in the same way on most planes, especially GA. The trim removes force, right? It doesn't actually move the elevator, it removes force. And it's a completely different way of working. And when I fly a real plane, I can't just pull 3 Gs like this and it's easy and it takes something, right? It's very hard to do, and you get the forces, and you don't do it like this. When in the sim, well, you just move the yoke and 3G, and it's not the same effort. And so it's something which is not very easy to reproduce the effort on the yoke. And also, it's what we wanted to give is basically make sure we mapped the controls in a way that you get the maximum possible precision, and so that basically overall what we're addressing is this feeling that planes were twitchy. It's because in previous versions they wanted optimally mapped, right, at every speed basically. We didn't optimize for every speed of the plane so that the yoke was basically making the best use of its range and not giving you more than you actually need. And so we did a pass on this update. We did it on all planes. So all 30s have had this change. So you can still stall, but it's been optimized that you can't pull more Gs than you're supposed to. And so basically you get maybe 20% more precision. more and less useless room. And so it feels 20%, maybe 30% more less twitchy. We also updated the stability, basically the overall stability of the planes. So that basically there was a change done. The previous stability was too much impacted by turbulence. And basically when the air was perfectly clean, it made the plane much more stable. But when the air was super shaky around the plane, it was actually pulling the plane with it, right? Too much. And so this has been changed. And now the planes, people may say that they feel a bit more, I mean, you're still gonna get affected by turbulence, of course, but they are not gonna be thrown around as much. It was an issue with the stability. So this has been changed. I mean, a whole bunch of little things like, I don't know, some planes have had a little performance tweaks. I would say nothing more than 10%, but sometimes there was a little bit of speed missing or a little bit of consumption or like I think one plane had a ghost spoiler. There was in reality no spoiler, but you could still pull out a spoiler. Little bugs like this has been fixed a ton on many aircraft. Mm-hmm. And on the autopilot, we completely changed basically the system that solves the equation of, okay, how much do I need to put? How much yoke do I need to put in order to achieve my autopilot goals? So the autopilot goals, like how fast do you roll, how fast do you turn, should all be improved. The way the plane follows the track should be improved. And the transition of, okay, what do I need to do? I need to roll right, change my heading, transform to what do you actually do on the yoke has been improved so that to get rid of oscillations, overshooting, it's a lot more precise. So, I mean, something which was very hard to get is like take an overpowered plane, do a very takeoff and really and like, I don't know, ask the heading to go 180 degrees, super fast climb and everything at the same time and just turn on the AP. Now it's smooth and it works. And in previous iteration, if you do something crazy like this, usually I mean, the autopilot would kill you, right? That's something sometimes people would see as like the autopilot tried to kill me. This should be gone. There may be a little bit of fine tuning because, well, it was a big change of the autopilot system. So we had to retest all the planes. And I mean, there is an infinity of flight plans that you could do. I've seen that sometimes planes may not be sticking to the ILS firmly enough. So we may want to add, I mean, there's a little bit of tuning per plane. That can actually be done in the plane file that we may want to tweak a little bit, but overall there should be a big improvement on the autopilot's behavior. I would say it should feel more smooth and actually do what you're asking it.
Great.
So that's the two big changes on the sim this time.
Awesome. And maybe, I don't know if you or Seb or you or Martial might know this, but I got a question in chat just now. What about AI Copilot? Is there anything you can explain there about the future? Yep.
Yeah, so that's actually the next thing, because the AI Copilot is using I mean, we thought it was lower priority than the actual autopilot. It's using the same systems. And so, yeah, we have a few bugs remaining on that. So we're working on this right now to make that one, improve that one. There's a few bugs that we may just put off. So for example, I looked at one right now, right? The Copilot doesn't know how to navigate between mountains yet. Well, that's not so easy to solve. And so we currently tries to get across on top, but sometimes you just can't, right? It's too high or you don't have enough climb speed. And so you're supposed to follow the valleys. Stuff like that is gonna be a little bit far out, but like the basic flying and doing a circuit and stuff like that, we're gonna try to address next, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. There's definitely a lot of concerns there, but it's glad to know that you're working on it fairly soon. Thank you so much. I think we can hop now back to you, Jorg, for the World Update 3.
By the way,
I'm finished later.
Still making notes. We're gonna hopefully get to a little bit later. You gotta go. Hurry up.
Yep.
What's the topic, Jane? I'm sorry.
World Update 3, UK.
Oh, World Update 3. Yeah, it's gonna be super cool. So up until I wrote this morning, it was actually called UK and Ireland. So we have awesome data for England, Wales, and Scotland. And somebody was asking about Faroe and frankly Shetland Islands and those types of places. And so yes, the data is going to be awesome. What I mean by that is it's 50 centimeters to 2 meters height field depth. which is great, and a completely new set of aerials. It's all done, looks great. Thank you, Bing. It's really, really cool. And then we are trying hard to get data for at least Northern Ireland, but I think then we might as well just do all of Ireland. So we're working on this. I hope to have an update there. I mean, it's a little dynamic, trust me, like I'm trying. Then I wanted to say something about the airports. So we're making a few Outscaries, Manchester Barton, Liverpool, EGGP, Land's End, and Barra. So it could be cool. Lots of fun airports, actually. We're planning on roughly 50 to 60 POIs, and spend a lot of time thinking about exactly which ones. And then Asobo is making new, I think, landing challenges. There's a new flight. There's also new procedural buildings from Black Shark that they're trying. It's not confirmed yet, to get churches, because we know that churches is a huge deal, specifically in that part of the world. So we're trying to get churches and cathedrals, and I think there's 10 new building types that they're trying to get into England, or into all of the UK. So it should be a really cool update. Hopefully that was enough.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jorg. We still have quite a bit that we want to get through, so we will move on now to, let's see, Sim Update 3. Martial, what is this update all about?
So we are going to focus mostly on approaches, ATC, and ATIS. I've seen some comments on the ATIS on the forum. So everything around the quality of approaches. So information with ATC, communication with ATC, ATIS, awesome. Everything around that.
Okay, yeah, so we got lots of top questions we got there. So are there any plans to improve ATC phraseology?
Yeah. So yes, we intend to improve the phraseology. Wow, very difficult for a French guy to say that. In the Sim Update 3, there's different way to do that. You can be fully by the book, like what the C.E.O says, or you can also use what are the common usage, and this can be different between Europe and US. So for the moment, what we've got is like the common usage in US. It's what I've been decided to do with the pilot we've been talking to. So we intend to improve that, and we're also considering of changing that kind of phraseology depending on regions. But that will, I can't commit on that on this. It should happen next after the Sim Update 3. I'm not sure for this regions stuff, but for the phraseology, sorry, this should be improved. This is planned for Sim Update 3, yes.
Okay, and are there any plans to improve the ATC algorithms and vectoring?
So yes, so these behavior has already been changed compared to what was done by FSX. Basically, we are using now the ATC. You've got to for most cases, you've got to push an ATC request, and so we are going to improve a lot of things on the approaches, and this is part of it. And I would like to ask the community to please give us some feedback on some use cases and bugs related to these approaches. It can be VFR, FR, on control or not control airports. Every kind of procedures, the nav data you're using, everything. Please, if we can collect every information we can use to improve these approaches, that would be for the best and for the team.
Wonderful,
we should say there's some comment about ATC. I think it's when they say sounds, I think it's audio quality in general. There's quite a bit of work going on there. Some of it is, I hold out. Some of it is super exciting. But like it's a prototype right now about doing this a little bit more with machine learning. There's some stuff going on that could be super cool, but it's cool. Probably it's going to be mid next year or later. But it's neat.
That sounds great. So Martial, for the ATIS, is there a way to have ATIS report all the correct information? Right now, it seems to not be doing the best job.
Okay, very quick answer, yes. And this is also planned for Sim Update 3, happening in February.
Ooh.
I had one more thing for you, Martial.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it. Nav data updates. It came up like a bunch. We should talk
So
about
yes, so every time we're doing an update, it's coming with the nav data update, and I know Seb was talking about the simple update for
Watermask.
for the water mask, and we're going to also do the same for the nav data. So it would be like a very short update.
So we're going to try to do the very first data only nav data updates. It's not going to be a sim update. It's just going to be a little bit of data that's going to be updated at the launch without having to update everything. So, and this is going to be good because it's going to be, if this works nicely, it's going to be reducing the delay between us getting the data and publishing it, because we don't have to wait for the next update of the actual full package.
So by doing that, you should be able to get an update every 28 days, as we do.
Awesome. Okay. And do you know when we'll have the NavBlue Charts Plus service?
So these services are planned for a bit later. This is for SIM Update 4, and I won't give a date so far. And we've got an issue here because we do have the charts, right? But we don't have the data which are displayed on these charts. So we can get some discrepancies between the charts and the information we've got. So for the naming, for all the services, the gateways, everything about the airports, we can have some discrepancies here. So we also intend to deliver a way to do the edition so people can change and not using the default one we've got, which is basically based on random, and then do some editions and to use the proper one. And hopefully one day we'll get the data and everything will be fixed, but it's not the case yet. And there is no technical solution for that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Got it. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to some questions that maybe didn't fall into a sim update, but were very important. This was maybe the top question that was asked in the forums. This is for Seb. So can we talk about how live traffic works? Why is there a lack of it right now? They posted a comparison between FlightAware and Flight Simulator at the same location, and they're wondering why there's less traffic in our sim.
So yeah, this has been investigated. We know the reasons, and we're currently working on ways to fix it. So basically the data we get is filtered, and if there's either a bad altitude, like for example, sometimes we get an altitude which is 0. So basically at the beginning we were putting planes on the ground, which is useless. So if there was an altitude of 0, they were filtered out. And the other way, the other thing which we would filter out is if there was no destination airport. So I've seen many times there's a departure airport, but no destination. And when we have a plane coming in with no destination and try to put that into the ATC system, into everything else, it just doesn't work. And also the AI, which is supposed to take over when because the data has gaps, right? There's sometimes we get data and then no data, and then the plane teleports somewhere else. And so we need some AI which actually sort of curates this.
And for takeoff and landing too.
Yeah, and when there's no destination airports, we don't really know what to do with it. So currently we're trying to work on a fix on what to do in order to augment missing data. So add a destination airport, try to find something, and correct the altitude. And this is basically all the missing flights. And I've looked at the original map of the data. Sometimes over Paris, there was 90% of the planes which had that data missing, and so we would just not show them.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. This one wasn't really on the very top of the community questions, but I thought was a really great question, as I see a lot of back and forth in the forums. Seb, can you explain how rolling cache works, if it's only recommended when the internet data limitations exists, or if you should have it on or off? There's lots of confusion surrounding this.
So most of the data that comes from the internet, which is streamed in real time when you're flying, it's HTTP requests, right? There's some file somewhere, and the SIM requests the download of the file. The rolling cache, what it does, it takes as much space as you want, right? It's a large file, but inside actually it's our file structure. Inside it's folder, right? It's files and folders. What it does is every time it downloads a HTTP file, it puts it into the cache, and and every time it looks for HTTP request, it looks in the cache first. That's pretty much, it's super simple, right? Every time I want to download something, some file, is it in the cache? If yes, I download. So even if you have a very fast internet connection, I would always have a rolling cache on, because you still, I mean, it's much more efficient to get the data from the local drive than to get it from the internet. I think the internet connection, I mean, the internet is, even if you have a very fast connection, it's never perfect. You can have lags, you can have stalls, you can have slow connection from time to time. We're actually thinking it may be connected to people who have LODs issues, which is basically when you fly and the data doesn't come in fast enough, it's going to display a low LOD. So I recommend to always have the cache on. Now, an area in the game is not that big, right? The whole Seattle area in TIN, if you fly over, it is at maximum 50 gigs maybe. So having a rolling cache, I've seen people saying I have 2 terabytes of rolling cache. That's maybe a little bit overkill. Personally, I set it to 32 gigs. It has in the cache all the areas I fly over. So I mean, I do my usual testing is 4 or 5 airports. I always go to the same places. And when you start exploring, if you go to a new place, it's not going to be in the cache anyway. So trying to cache the entire planet, I mean, that would be, I mean, constantly growing, maybe 3 petabytes of data now. So you can't cache everything anyway. So I would say there's a size of diminished return where if you increase your cache, you just don't get any return. Below 8 or 8 to 10, I think it's going to be a limit, because I mean, 8 gigs is maybe just one location, right? With 32 gigs, I get maybe 3-4 locations which are always in a cache. And but yeah, people who have a very fast internet connection are gonna say, okay, it's not any faster. I don't get any gains, but still the pressure on your internet is gonna be lower. And if there's all of a sudden, I mean, at home I have a gigabit fiber now. I get 800 megabits most of the time, and I don't know why 4 or 5 times of the day it's super slow for 2 or 3 minutes. And when this happens, well, if you have a cache, you don't even notice, right? You don't even notice. If you don't have the cache, then all of a sudden the terrain detail is going to drop for a moment. So if you stay in place, it's going to load eventually. But when you fly over, you don't stay in place, right? If you do a flight plan and some terrain comes in, it hasn't had the time to load, you will never ever see the higher LOD anyway. So yeah, LODs is still important. I think the default is set to 16 or something. It's very efficient. It doesn't have a footprint too big, but it's very simple. It's exactly what it says, right? It takes each HTTP request. It's a FIFO, first in, FILO, first in, last. No, I don't know. It takes the oldest. I mean, if there's not enough space, it kicks out the oldest data, right? It's very, very simple.
Yeah.
Jen, you should ask Seb to be more concise, I think.
Okay. I think, hey, Jane, if that's okay, I want to go breeze through some stuff because we only have 5 minutes.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
right,
and we'll post the rest of the questions that we answered in the forums afterwards if we don't get to them.
Yeah, so third-party planes came up a lot. People said, hey, the update broke third-party planes. So that's what we said earlier. We know that. It's basically, that's why we're going to do flighting in the future, where third parties actually get the build a few weeks before, so they can make sure everything is hunky-dory before we go out wide. It's just our setup isn't perfect. So we talked to quite a few, obviously, Coronado and people like that. Fernando wrote us this morning, or wrote us an email. We know that the 320NX broke, and we talked to the fly-by-wire folks. We know that, and we need to fix it. It's a known thing. So just bear with us. We're trying to get it out in January. It's not clear yet if we can make it by then with a preview system, but we know it's important. Mm-hmm. Then there was a question on Honeycomb early on. We talked to Nikki and his team quite a bit. So we are supporting to the degree that we can. There was some question that Martial could go into with blinking lights on the new device, on the new block. Remember, Martial, that they were looking for us to. Anyways, it's too much detail, but yes, I can just tell you, yes, we're working with Honeycomb, we're working with all the peripheral makers.
So you mean the LEDs that are on the, I thought you were talking about lights in the simulation, so no LEDs on the device, yes. So yeah. We're working with them.
Yeah. And somebody was saying something about the shirts. I like the shirts too. We're actually working on figuring out how to get these sold on our website. Bear with us, but yeah, that's very early on. There was flicker on the flight deck that came up like, I don't know, 17
Yeah, the
times.
shadows, yeah.
So Shep, do you know, this is, people think it's new, that there's, I think it's a shadow map. So I have not heard this until I looked at this chat. So we're honestly, we have to look at this. It's totally possible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's, I have not seen anything personally. Is it if it's plane specific or not? Because sometimes there's not exactly the same shadows on all planes. But yeah, we will look at it.
Or hardware specific. If you can give us more information in the chat or in the forum.
Yeah, in the forums would be great. Like we're going to look at it obviously right away. LDA approaches. Anyone want to speak to that? Exactly. So we're going to postpone that research. Thank you.
Yeah.
Grainy clouds. There's lots of people seem to think our clouds got grainier, which seems.
I've seen some comments. Yeah, I've seen some comments on update 6. So in order to see that, we try to do like a before after photo comparison, and we didn't find any differences. If you can show us exactly what you mean, and if you've got some samples here, it would be for the best.
So shots with your setting also, right? Because it could be a setting issue. It could be that something got reset via the update.
Yeah, so the grain, so they have always been grainy. That's that's based on the technique we use. To make them less grainy, we need to make more calculations. And so that may be something, if we end up with more performance, we can add one level on top where we just do, I mean, it's very easy, right? It's a number. How many samples do you do? We can push this up, but we haven't changed this at all.
No.
But it's very dependent on lighting conditions. So sometimes they may look grainy, sometimes you don't see it at all. Depends on how thick they are, how dense, how much water there's, and if they're more fuzzy or not. So normally nothing has changed, but yeah, they have been always a bit grainy.
So, yeah.
Because
so I can see in the charts, some people say that it came after update 6. And
we just need to look at it. I hear there's tons of screenshots. We were so busy with update 7. We're going to have to go dig a little bit and see exactly what's going on. A couple of other topics. Replay. We have that on the feedback snapshot. Either one of you guys want to talk about where we are? Replay system to roll it out.
So yeah. Well, we've got a system working, but it's very internal for the moment. It's very raw, and it needs to be a little bit polished. And we need to do the UI for that, and also a better save system that works better. So we've got the base for that, and it needs to be turned into a customer-facing feature, and we are going to bring that during the next updates.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not committed yet, but like that's
it's not committed. Yeah.
We have it in 2021. This is one of the. It goes back to the when in 2021. Well, we're gonna have to see when it's actually ready for prime time. But you don't want us to put something out that doesn't work.
Could we get an update from you, Jorg, on the scenery gateway system?
Yeah, talk to them. I had a great old time since the last chat we had. I talked to the fly-by-wire folks. I talked to the working title folks. I got a bunch of interesting emails from people making suggestions how the scenery gateway system works. The first thing I would say is it's been all super positive. We have a ton of respect. I mean, there's communication going on. Certainly with the working title team, it's great. Fly-by-wire, they obviously know what they're doing. Sorry we broke your NX, but it's just where we are right now. And there's a bunch of other groups that I think are doing really good work. And then the gateway system is something we're now actively looking at. So we got thank you for sending all that. People send PowerPoint presentations and links to things that already work. So we don't know exactly how long it's going to take us, but we know this is something we want to do.
Awesome.
So this is one of those 2021. Not sure exactly when.
Yeah. And yeah, there's lots of questions that we can't answer that I am just going to post in the forums. I don't know if you guys have any last minute things you want to answer before we close out.
Multi-monitor is
sure.
what I'm up 14 times. Maybe we can talk about this real quick. Monsieur?
It's all a matter of schedule because all the well, the engineers that are working on the rendering system, they are working on other stuff right now, and it's something we would bring just after. But we we said we put we did not commit into a date. The goal is to have this coming very soon. I know that's for the one that did like a great job for the home cockpits. They're pretty eager to get this, so we know it's important. And well, for the moment, I think we've put to 2022. We'll try to do our best to make it happen as soon as possible. But there's so much to do.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, so it's I think it was great. I love the chat. I think it feels a little bit more interactive. I hope y'all agree. Whether or not we should change it to 90 minutes, we'll have an internal chat about this because it feels like we're running a little bit short on time now. I would just say I hope you're enjoying update 7, meaning the US update and the upcoming VR and the sim update. And then check out time before Christmas, and some nice surprises coming your way. Just want to say that. Hint.
Nice surprises coming our way, chat. All right, thank you, 3, for joining us. We will see you. I wanted to say there's no Dev Q&A in December, so join us back in January sometime. We'll put that on the calendar soon. So thank you, everyone. Hope you have a happy holidays, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.